So it's once again a pleasure for me, a pleasure and a schus to be together with you all. This is going to sound extremely strange to you, but I just said a shechiyonu tonight. And you'll ask, what is there to say a shechiyonu about in such difficult and tragic times? So tonight is my birthday, and it's a very special day to me. I only have one birthday, and that's my Jewish birthday, not an English one. I don't usually say a shechiyanu on my birthday, but just this week, a new Minchas Osher came out, and it was a nace. I didn't believe it's going to come out. And it's the third chelek Minchas Osher on Moyadim Dova Be'itoi. It's on Pesach and Shavuos. And whenever a new sefer comes out, I buy a beged chodosh. So I bought a new talis cotton, and I said a shechiyanu. So it's the most beautiful birthday present I could get. I didn't think it's going to come out. But just before everything shut down, the last sefer to roll out of the printing press was Baruch Hashem, this Minchas Osher. So to me, this is a very special day and a very special occasion. And it is also symbolic, because with all the pain and all the difficulty, Simchas HaTorah must go on, and Arbotzes Torah must go on. Ki hi chayecho va'orech yomecho. And as we say in Birchas Kriya Shema every day, ki heim chayenu va'orech yomeinu. What keeps us going in these difficult and tragic times is our dveikus in Torah. And that is what this Yachi Kala is all about. So hundreds of people are learning. And it's definitely Talmud Torah Derabim. Each one of us sitting in his own room, in his own home, sitting all by himself as I am right now. And we're engaging in a huge Talmud Torah Derabim. And that is the way to respond to pain, to difficulty, to strife. Rabbi Kiva ben Yosef b'shas hagzera was makel kehilas barami. So many events stop. We ain't doing any chasanas right now. We ain't. But what cannot stop is Talmud Torah and Simchas HaTorah. It is the oxygen we breathe. It's our lifeline. So, with all the difficulty, and every day, I have hundreds of shilas, some of them real painful and difficult shilas. I never believed that I will ever be matir, boina, and Shabbos. This afternoon, I was matir, boina, and Shabbos. To my dismay, the number of corona cases in Yerushalayim is rising by the hour dramatically. And Shari Tzedek is urgently building 2 new units for corona patients. And I was matir to continue in building those units on Shabbos. So many times I was matir various different malachas that are associated to Pikuach Nefesh. First time in my life, and I hope the last time in my life, in which Malachas Boina is associated with Pikuach Nefesh. So all day and all night I'm busy helping people, paskening shilas. So this afternoon I had a shor shel koiras ruach, rejoicing with a new sefer. I stopped counting a while ago. I think it's number 31 of the Minchas Osher that were published. And I daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Ko Yitan Hashem v'Ko Yosef. So as I told you, tonight is my birthday. I will not tell you how young I am. That is classified information. It's a state secret. But I daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we should be able for many years to keep up Harbotzes Torah and trying to be helpful to Klal Yisrael and to every individual in times of need, in times of pain. So Baruch Hashem, it's a huge schus, and I'm happy to be together with you again this evening. Huh? So, as I mentioned Monday, this Seder is going to be a somewhat different Seder. Not a sad one, but a different one. It cannot be a sad Seder. A Seder by its very nature must be besimcha. Let me tell you a story of another Seder. A story I heard from my father many, many times. And my late father, Zecher Tzaddik Levrocha, used to tell this story by his Seder. And I heard it from him many times. And we go back many years to 1945, Tovshin Hay, Leil Pesach in Mildorf. I told many times how and when my father first met my great Rebbe, the Tzanzer Kloisenberger Rebbe. My father and his entire family arrived in Auschwitz in Birkenau the first day Shavuos, Tovshin Daled, 1944. The Kloisenberger Rebbe arrived one day later, second day Shavuos. And they were together for approximately 13 months till the end of the war. I won't tell that story again, but we move fast forward almost a year to the days before Pesach, and by then they were in Mildorf in Germany, in another camp, one of the various and many camps they went through together. In the days before Pesach, the Kloisenberger Rebbe was busy. What type of a Pesach will we have? And we need to prepare. And they put aside some potatoes, hoping they won't need to eat chametz on Pesach. And the Rebbe was confident, Be'ezras Hashem will have matzahs. Everybody wondered. People looked at each other. How does he think we'll have matzahs? And my father remembers in that camp there was a Jew, a Meshumad, a UMaror. And he used to tease the Rebbe. So, did you get your matzahs already? Did you get your matzahs? And the Rebbe expressed his confidence. We'll have matzahs b'siyata d'shmaya Kodesh Baruch Hu won't leave us without matzahs. Nisei nisim. It was almost the end of the war, and there were daily air raids by the Allied air forces. And about 4 or 5 days before Pesach, a train station was bombed, and a train that was parked in the station was ripped apart. And they took out the Jews to the train station to clear away the rubble from the tracks that those awful, horrible Nazi trains should be able to do their work. And miraculously, one of the cars of that train obviously was packed with grain. So a huge amount of grain was strewn apart on the field. And the Jews coming home every day managed to sneak in some kernels of grain. They tied their pants at the bottom and put in some grain and brought it back to the camp. And the Rebbe improvised some kind of a tanur, and they took some sticks, which they stole from the warehouse. And a day before Pesach, they crushed with rocks the grain. One of the Jews by night stood at the door of the building to warn them if any German officer might approach. And they baked matzahs. And the Kloiser Megarebu, the greatest of Slavas, said Hallel during baking those matzahs. I don't think those matzahs would get a hechsher from the Eida Charedis or the OU or any other organization. But there's no question in my mind that the Nachas Ruach that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had from those matzahs, we could never achieve with Rechaim Shel Yad and Kofel Shmoin and all the other chomres that we might implement. Erev Pesach, the Rebbe went over to the Lazaret. The Lazaret was the hospital room in every camp. That was the most horrible place in the most horrible place on the planet. And that was a room from which Kol B'Eyo Lo Yeshuvan. That was a one-way road. People didn't get out of there. And nobody dared to visit, because if you got infected with any illness, you had no chance of survival. And there were contagious diseases, almost like the coronavirus. But the Kloiser Megarebi took a kazayas matzah, and he went over to the Lazaret of Pesach, and he gave those matzah to a Jew named Aaron First. And he told him, take the matzah, eat it tonight. It's a mechle de asvasa. Because the Zohar says that matzah is a machel shel refuah. Aaron First survived. And after the war, he came to America. And we knew that person. And when the Leila Seder came, about 10 people sat down with those little matzahs. Everybody got a kazayas. Some of those people ultimately would be leaders. The Vishev Rebbe, the Nir Bat Rav, and my father was one of them. And the Kloiser Megarebi said the entire Hagada Balpeh with an unbelievable hislavis and simcha. That was a Yiddish Leil Seder in different circumstances. What we are experiencing is nothing similar to what they felt in those most horrific times. And even then and there, they had a Seder, and they told the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And this is a huge question. So what did the Kloiser Megarebi have in mind when he said the Hagada? When he said Hallel in Mildorf, Pesach, 1945, under the yoke of the Nazis, Yamach Shema. They rejoiced in remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim. And they thanked HaKadosh Baruch Hu and prayed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So whenever I tell this story to my children, I add on a beautiful mashal from the shel and Meishav. So we have a Godesh of Pesach Divrei Shor. Rabbi Yosef Shel Natanzon was the greatest Pesach in his era, in his generation, almost 200 years ago. And he used to tell a mashal in his Seder. So going back to Poland 200 years ago, Jews were not in the best of situations. Eastern Europe, most times Jews were in quite dire straits. So the Shayla Meishav asked, why do we rejoice in remembering Yetzias Mitzrayim if we're once again in Galus? The freedom, the sovereignty that we got when leaving Mitzrayim is gone. We are once again in Golos. We are once again Nirdofim. So why do we rejoice in Yetzias Mitzrayim? So the Shoel HaMeishav said a mashal. There was a Tayar Yid, a wonderful Jew that was an Oni ve'Evyon, and he prayed to HaKadosh Baruch Hu should give him Parnasa b'Shefa, like we all do. And in a miraculous way, he was Zoicha in a big Oitzah. Every year, on that wonderful day, he used to make a Sudas Haidoya. And he used to call together his relatives, his neighbors, his closest friends, and throw a big feast, a big Su'udok, a Suda Shleima B'Shat, and they used to rejoice and give thanks and Haidoya to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years transpired. We all know there's a Galgal HaChoyza B'Yolam. And that Galgal, that wheel of fortune, took a turn to the worse, and he lost all his money. His family was worried. When that day will come again, how will it affect his father's state of mind? Will he become depressed, remembering that joyous feast, that Suda Gedolah that they used to make every year, thanking Kodesh Baruch Hu? As that day approached, he invited same relatives, same friends, same neighbors as he did every year. And he invited them to a Suda. They all came together and they looked at each other perplexed, and nobody dared to say a word. But one of the sons of Ploni Almoni said, Tata, it's not Pesach, so I won't ask 4 questions. I don't have 4 kashas, but I have 1 kasha, which troubles me more than all the 4 that we asked B'Leila Seder. And the father tells his son, Sha'al bini, so what troubles you? What's your question? And the son tells the father, Abba, look at the table. Look at the table. Why did you bring all these people together? I mean, what are you offering? And why do you seem to be so happy? And he says, Tayar Kind, when I davened all those years when we were poor that a Kodesh Baruch Hu should give me Panasa, it's not because I was a Baltaivet, not because I wanted to be rich. I just worried for you. Going back 200 years or 100 years in Europe, if you didn't have Panasa, nobody really helped you out and cared for you. And even little children used to work to help put bread on the table. And I was worried, will I be able to send you to yeshiva and to teach you Torah? That was my only concern. And exactly in the right time, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us riches and gave us the money to be able. And Baruch Hashem, you grew to be Talmidei Chachamim. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided to give the money to someone else. But the Torah you learned in these years, nobody will ever be able to take away. And that is why I am happy, and that is why I rejoice, and that is why I give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that is why we're all sitting together tonight, as we did every year in the recent years. So the Shoel HaMeishav said, maybe some of the freedom we achieved leaving Eretz Mitzrayim we have lost. We have lost along the way. So when we left Mitzrayim, the first stop was Mamed Har Sinai and Matan Torah. The second stop was the Mishkan, and we achieved the Shroes HaShechina. And those no one could ever take away, neither Hitler nor Stalin. Yes, we no longer have a Beis HaMikdash, but the Gemara says, "Megillah Daf Chavtes ve'eyu lahem leMikdash ba'ad b'kol mokom asher yevoyu shama elo bote knesiyos ubote midroshes shebebavel." Those no one could ever take away, and that is why we will rejoice each and every year with Yetzias Mitzrayim, regardless of the circumstances we are in. So the Kloisenberger Rebbe with some other tzaddikim, my late father, Zechat Tzadik Lavrocha, Zechat Tzadikim Lavrocha, was one of them, yes, under the Nazis in Mildorf, with those little matzalech, those little precious matzalech that they produced by Mesiras Nefesh. They said Hallel, they rejoiced, and they thanked the Kodesh Baruch Hu. So will we, each and every one of us, in this strange Seder that we will have this year. It really will be a strange Seder. I know the Brisa says, Psachim Kufte Zayin Amud Aleph, Haben Shoyel, Em Ein B'nai Chacham, Ishtoi Shoyel. So, to many families, it'll be the first opportunity of Ishtoi Shoyel, because youngsters usually go to their parents. Older people have their children around the table to ask the shaylas. So many people the first time in their life will be alone. Ish, the ishtoi, elderly people, young people. It will be a different type of Seder, but not chas v'shalom a sad one. And we will all look back and thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shegoal asav oiseinu, v'goal oisanu, and Baruch Hashem. We could learn Torah. We have the mitzvahs of the Leila Seder. And we have so much to thank for. With all the pain and the suffering and the tragedy. We always thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we're always besimcha. So Hasidim say in the name of the great Rishon Tzaddik, Rabbi Yisrael Merujin, Misha nechnas odor marbe besimcha, Misha nechnas odor marbe besimcha. A Jew is always besimcha. It's just a question of volume. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Marbe besimcha, memate besimcha. But a Jew is always besimcha, especially besimcha sachag. So b'siyata d'shmayu be'ezas Hashem, we will be happy Pesach. So we say Hallel b'leila Seder, but it's a strange Hallel. We say the first two prokim before the Suda, before Matza and UMaror, before Shulchan Aruch, and after benching, we say the other prokim of Hallel. So why do we divide Hallel in two? In normal circumstances, you're not allowed to make a hefsek in Hallel. But B'leila Seder, on the Seder night, we split Hallel in two. The answer to this question is a Yerushalmi. Interesting, not a Masechet Pesachim, but rather a Megillah Yud Ches Amud Beis. And a Masechet Megillah Yud Ches Amud Beis, the Yerushalmi explains the first two prokim refer to Yetzias Mitzrayim. Befrat B'tzeis Yisroel Mitzrayim. Third Perek in Hallel Oilanu is Ledoiros. And then the other program, when we examine Hagadda shel Pesach, this is a very interesting observation and a very fundamental one. Leila Seder is split into two sections. Whatever we say in the Hagada, up to mitzvahs Matza UMaror, Shloisha Dvorim Halolo Pesach Matza UMaror, deals with the past, with Yetzias Mitzrayim. Everything we say, La'acha Berchas HaMazayin, deals with Yemois HaMoshiach, with the Tzipiyah LiYeshua. And the Yerushalmi explains, even Hallel is split in two sections. B'tzeis Yisrael is Yetzias Mitzrayim. Loilanu is Ledoiros, all the Siyata D'Shmaya we had through the ages. And then the other program, Ali Yemois HaMoshiach Ula Olam Haba. So after benching, we say Yebona HaMikdash, and all the piyutim b'derech sod, culminating, the climax is Hagadda. All those have to do with Liosed Lavoi, with Yemois HaMoshiach. And many times I said, a Jew never lived in the present. The present year was usually a sad one, a troublesome one, a painful one. A Yid lives in the past and in the future. He looks past to his magnificent past. He looks back to his magnificent past. Liyamei avoseinu, Liyetzias Mitzrayim, while his eyes are fixed to the future. Liyamoisa Moshiach. So Baruch Hashem, we will say Hallel. We will thank Kodesh Baruch Hu for the past, and we will daven for the future, as I said on Monday. So this is going to be a very special Seder, a different one, but we'll make an effort. It should be a gewaldige Seder and a happy Seder, and we'll take advantage of the circumstances that Kodesh Baruch Hu put us in. So the topic we should be discussing tonight, in Lamdis and in Halacha, Kol Shalayom Shloisha Dvora Meilu BePesach Lo Yotze Yedei Chayvosei. That's a Mishnah. Psochem Kuf Tes Zayin Omed Aleph. Omer Rabban Gamliel. Kol Shalayom Shloisha Dvora Meilu BePesach Lo Yotze Yedei Chayvosei VeElu Hen Pesach Matza VeMoror Shanu Oichlon Al Shum Mo. And then Rabban Gamliel explains, we eat Pesach Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim Sheposach HaKodesh Baruch Hu Al Pesach. We eat Matza, lo hisbik b'tzeikom la'achmetz, and we eat UMaror to remember, the UMaroru es chayeyem, and that is Pesach, Matza, v'UMaror she'anu oichlem al shum ma. So, what is pshat la yotze yedei chayvosoi? Yedei chayvosoi shel ma. What is it that we need to be Yotze Yedei Chayva? Is it Yotze Yedei Chavosei Pesach Matza VeMoror? Or maybe is it La Yotze Yedei Chayves Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim? Bikure Yankov, the Orach Laner. And one of the great svarim of the Orach Laner, there's Orach Laner on Masechet Sukkah. So I just want to give some brief biography and history. Usually when I mention Svarim of Gedolei Yisrael, I think it's inspiring and it gives some added depth and understanding when I just describe briefly who was the Orach Laner, Rabbi Yankov Ettlinger. And he was a Rav in various different kehilas in Ashkenaz in Germany. And it is interesting. I mentioned the shel before. So the shel was the greatest posek of that generation. And the 6 volumes of shel are awesome. So the shel corresponded with all the gedolim of his generation. When I was a bocher, I had tremendous inspiration from the shel. So I quote him a lot. One of the first forms that inspired me to strive and to learn Bas Mother was the shel. It's one of the Gedolei Galicia. It's not exactly the Derech HaLemed I learned today, but I had tremendous to'elas and inspiration from the shel. So I am quite a bookie in this sefer, and he corresponded with all the Gedolim of his generation. The only Gadol he writes a title, Ish Elokim, is the Orach Laner. And that's very interesting, because he responds with the Divrei Chaim of Tzanz, he responds with the Chidush Harim, the first Gerer Rebbe. But the only Gadol he titles Ish Elokim is the Orach Laner, which is interesting. So the Orach Laner, in the introduction to one of his form, I think it's on Yavamis, the Orach Laner writes that I will write Chidushim primarily on those Masechtas that we don't have Pnei Yehoshua, because we feel the lack of Pnei Yehoshua on Masechet Yavamis. We have Pnei Yehoshua and Kedushin and Gittin and Chassidus, but we don't have them in Yavamis, and that is why I decided to write a Sefer on Yavamis. So the Orach Laner imagined that he's going to be a substitute for the Pnei Yehoshua. Oh, that's an awesome undertaking. Nobody compares to the Pnei Yehoshua of the Achronim, but I think the Orach Laner came close. He came somewhat close, even though, well, he's not the Pnei Yehoshua. So the Orach Laner has a sefer on Hilchas Sukkah B'Kuri Yankov, and it's in Tov Reish Chof Hey. He quotes the Bach. This is a very fundamental Bach, twice in the Bach. Siman Ches in Hilchas Tzitzis, Tov Reish Chof Hey in Hilchas Sukkah. Even though the Bach is relevant also in Hilchas Tefillin, but we don't find the Bach in Hilchas Tefillin, only in Hilchas Tzitzis and in Hilchas Sukkah. And the Bach writes a gewaldige Chiddush, which is, besides the basic halacha of mitzvahs sichus kavana, which is relevant to many, many mitzvahs, there are 3 mitzvahs in which there is a need for an additional kavana, besides the general concept of Hineni Muchanim Mezumen Lakayim Mitzvahs Aseh, which is Mitzvahs Slichas Kavana. So the Bach writes, there are three mitzvahs in which the Torah explains what is the time of the mitzvah, what's the reasoning. And when the Torah explains Tamei mitzvahs, you need to bear those tamim in mind. Machloikes Mishnah Berurah and Bekur Yankev, whether it's ma'akev or not ma'akev. So the Mishnah Berurah and Sofrim Simachov Hey and Hilchos Tefillin says that this additional kavod is not ma'akev b'di'evet, so only lechatchila. But the Aruch LaNer disagrees. The Mishnah Berurah quotes the Pri Megadim. The Aruch LaNer can't quote the Mishnah Berurah because he was older than the Mishnah Berurah by 100 years. But he does bring the Pri Megadim, and he disagrees with the Pri Megadim. And the Aruch LaNer says maybe this additional kavona is ma'akev even b'di'evet. So the Bach says, by tzitzis, leman tizkeru va'asisem es kol mitzvahs Hashem. So the Torah explains, why is it that we need to put on tzitzis? On every garment that has dalat kanfas, we should remember mitzvahs Hashem. By tefillin, leman tiyeh Torahs Hashem beficho. So once again, leman tiyeh Torahs Hashem beficho. We have to bear that in mind. Minchas Osho, Shas Teshuvos. I don't remember whether it's Chelik Aleph or Chelik Beis. The very first shuv in the Sefer, I wonder. We say L'Shem Yichud before putting on tefillin. But we do not mention the basic tam leman tiyeh Torahs Hashem beficha. So that's a tshuva in Minchas Osho. It's not the sugya we're discussing today. If you wish, look it up. And the third mitzvah, in which the Torah clearly explains what the tam is sukkah. Leman yedu deresechem ki besukkah seshafti es b'nei Yisrael. So the Bach says, these three mitzvahs require a special and additional kavana, besides the general concept of mitzvah sichas kavana a person needs to have in mind that he's mekayim mitzvahs Hashem. But by these mitzvahs, you need to bear in mind why. Why do we put on tzitzis? Why do we put on tefillin? And why do we sit in sukkah? So the Bach has a beautiful word, a beautiful chiddush. So the Tunas in the Tofesh Chafai writes that sukkahs are a zechar ananei hakavod. And the Bach comments, why does the Tur need to write the sukkahs are a zechar ananei hakavod? Well, it's not nagei alocha l'maisa. And the Torah is not a parshan, the Torah is a Pesach. So why does it need to write that the sukkahs are zechar ananei hakavod? So the Bach says, according to my chiddush, it is nagei halacha l'maisa because you need to know what to bear in mind, because you need to have this kavanah. So you need to bear in mind that sukkahs are zechar ananei hakavod. Ani akoten v'hadal ketalmed adan lefnei raboisa v'gedolim b'karka. I think there are many passages in the Torah which are not really halacha l'maisa. And I think the derech of the Torah is, in many sources, they give some background. They give some background in machshava, in musar. So I don't think the kasha of the Bach is a gewaldige kasha, but that does not diminish in any way his chiddush. What does it have to do with Leila Seder? This brings us back to the Bekur Yankov. So the Bekur Yankov says, because by Pesach, Matza, UMaror, we also need to bear in mind, and we need to have a kavanah. Why do we eat korban Pesach? Why do we eat Matza? And why do we eat UMaror? Just like tzitzis, tefillin, and sukkah. That's the Bekur Yankov. And once again, I must disagree. And many times I feel a need to apologize when I disagree with the Chaynim. And one of the things I usually say to my Talmidim, if to disagree would be a privilege, I would be mevater on the privilege. I don't enjoy it. But it's an obligation and not only a privilege. Every Talmid Chacham needs to learn Torah in the light HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him to learn Torah. So with tremendous isbatlus, many times I have my own and different feelings. And I don't think Rabbi Gamliel has anything to do with the Bach whatsoever. Because the Bach deals with kavana. Rabban Gamliel deals with amira, not with kavana. Rabban Gamliel says, Kol shaloi omar shloshe dvorim elu lo yotze yedei vosoi. So by tzitzis and tefillin and sukkah, you don't need to say anything. It's a concept of kavana, parallel, equivalent to mitzvah sichas kavana. Rabban Gamliel is not dealing with ilchas kavana. Rabban Gamliel requires amir, and that's why to me it's a dover poshut that Rabban Gamliel is not referring at all to the mitzvahs of Pesach, Matza, and UMaror. He is referring to the mitzvah of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. And the chiddush of Rabban Gamliel is, B'leila Seder, it's not enough to tell the story of Yitzias Mitzrayim. In our previous Shia Monday, in the Shia Psicha, I explained that by Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, you need to relate to details, and you need to explain that it was miracles upon miracles. And you need to stress, this is the day. Rabban Gamliel comes with a gewaldige chiddush. In the context of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim, you also need to explain the three fundamental mitzvahs that we have b'leila seder, and how these mitzvahs fit in the context of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. What did they have to do to the remembrance, to remembering Yitzias Mitzrayim? And that is an integral part of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. That's the chiddush of Rabban Gamliel. So a person is Yoitze Pesach, is Yoitze Matza, is Yoitze UMaror. If he didn't say anything, and he didn't even have anything in mind, he is Yoitze. What he's not Yoitze is the mitzvah of Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. And the gewaldige chiddush of Rabban Gamliel is, besides telling the story of Yitzias Mitzrayim, we also need to explain the three fundamental mitzvahs we have, b'leila seder, and that is Pesach, Matza, and UMaror. Al shumo. So in the sources I sent out, we have the Ramban and Malchamis, and the Kolboy, and some Achronim understand from the Kolboy and the Ramban that their opinion is that Kol Shel Yom Shloishet Boramei Lo Yotze Lechavos, the Kavon is Lo Yotze Lechavis Pesach, Matza, and UMaror, and I think that's a mistake. It's the Pashtus Aloshon of the Ramban and the Kolboy, but E.F. Shal. So many times I quote the Chazon Ish, and the Chazon Ish appears twice. Yerodei Mem, Even HaEzer Seminayin, dealing with an interesting rich in Kedushin Lavav. But what I quote from the Chazon Ish, Mutav Lanu Litchik Beloshim HaRashonim Kedei Lahamed Es Advorim Al Tikunam. To me, it's such a pshitus that the Ramban is, that Rabban Gamliel has nothing to do with the Bach. Rabban Gamliel is about Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim because it's about Amira. Amira is Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim. What does Amira have to do with Kavana? And therefore, I think even the Ramban and the Kolboy, Pshat is, person ate Pesach, Matza, and UMaror, but he wasn't Yoitze Sipur Yitzias Mitzrayim unless he explained why is he eating Pesach, Matza, and UMaror. So now the question would be, but why not? Why doesn't Pesach, Matza, and UMaror have the same din as tzitzis, tefillin, and sukkah? My answer is a very simple one. By Pesach, we do find that the reason of Achilas Pesach is Pasach Hashem ala Pesach. But by UMaror, no. The Torah never explains why we eat UMaror. We understand it's because the UMaror is Chayim. What else could it be? We don't eat UMaror on Shavuos. We don't eat UMaror on Sukkos. We don't eat UMaror Shabbos Kodesh. So why would we eat UMaror on Pesach if not for the UMaror Chayim? But we can't call that a tam hamefurish b'Torah because it's not mefurish b'Torah. Al Matza simroidem yochluhu. Nowhere is there a remez in the Torah that the reason we eat maror is because we are maror was chayayim. So what does that have to do with the bach? Even by matzah, it's not so clear that it's mefurish b'Torah why we eat matzah. By Korban Pesach it is. But let me give you a profound thought, and Lanias daiti it's Torah semes. There's a difference between tam and tachlis. Using English, there's a difference between a goal and a reason. There's a difference between an objective that we need to strive to and achieve, a goal we need to achieve, and rationale or reasoning. There's a difference between tamei mitzvahs and tachlis mitzvahs. When the Torah says, where it says, leman tizkeru, put on tefillin leman tiyeh Torah Hashem bepicho, v'sukkos teish v'shuvas yomim leman yoyde d'roseichem. Leman is kedei. You should put on tzitzis in order to remember. You should put tefillin in order to learn Torah. You should sit in the sukkah in order to remember the Anana Yaakov. That is the goal. That's an objective. That is not only a reason. It's not tamei mitzvahs. It is tachlison shel mitzvahs. And it is only then that the Bach says, if this is the goal, you need to achieve the goal. And to achieve that goal, you need to bear it in mind. That's the Bach. It has nothing to do with Pesach, Matza, and UMaror. Even Korban Pesach, it's clear that's the reason we eat Pesach, but it's not a goal, it's not an objective. And by Pesach, we do not find the Loshen Leman. Leman tizkeru. And therefore, tamei mitzvahs are important. We need to learn tamei mitzvahs. But nowhere do we find that when we're mekayim a mitzvah, we need to bear in mind the tam of the mitzvah. Ein din tam kedin tachlis. There's a difference between a goal and a reason. I think it's Torah semes, but I have a fundamental question. In Parshas Re'eh, we have a mitzvah, and it's the same mitzvah we're dealing with, the mitzvah of achilas matzah. And the Torah says, "Leman tizkores yom tzeischu me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha." So why doesn't the Bach say 4 mitzvahs and not only 3? When you eat matzah, you need to bear in mind the reason you eat matzah is "Leman tizkores yom tzeischu me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha." So the Bach says his gewaldige chiddush regarding 3 mitzvahs and no more. Tzitzis, tefillin, and sukkah. So that is one of my arguments against the pshat of the Bekuri Yankov. The fact that the Bach does not say the same regarding Pesach, Matza, and UMaror. So I explained why. But at least regarding matzah, we do find leman tizkores yom tzeischu me'eretz Mitzrayim kol yemei chayecha. So why would matzah be different than tzitzis, tefillin, or sukkah? My answer is a very, very simple one. The pasuk says, "Shivas yomim toichel matzos." So it's quite clear, Shivas Yom Toichel Matzos is not the mitzvah of achilas matzah. Kol Shiva Reshus. Matzah is not a choiva, only Leil Arishon. So the source of achilas matzah, of the mitzvah of achilas matzah, is not the pasuk it's a different pasuk. Be'erev toichlo matzahs and Parshas Boy, not the pasuk we find in Parshas Re'eh. So the pasuk we find in Parshas Re'eh Shivas Yom Torah Matzahs is part of the Isser of Chametz. You could only eat matzah, not chametz. It's a low ta'asa, and by lavin there is no gather of kavon. And therefore, the Bach does not refer to achilas matzah. But I still have another question. Another posek in Parshas Re'ei, dealing with Maser Sheni. ואוכלת לפני השם אלוקיך במקום אשר יבחר לשכן שמו שם. מעשה דגנך תירושך ויצורך ובחורס בכוח ובצונך ולמען תלמד לירוש השם אלוקיך כל היומים. So in this mitzvah of Achilas Maser Sheni בירושלים, the Torah does say, למען תלמד לירוש השם אלוקיך כל היומים. למען. So what is the difference between Laman Tilmad Liyiro, Laman Tiskuru Vesisam is called Mrs. Hashem, Laman Yedu Dorosechem, Laman Tiatoris Hashem Beficho? So why doesn't the Bach say 4 mitzvahs and not 3? My answer is once again a simple one, because the Bach doesn't have where to say it. Because the Bach explains the Torah. And we do not find in Torah the mitzvah of Achilas Maser Sheni for a very simple reason. It's not Noyeg Bizman Hazeh. It is one of the mitzvahs that is only Noyeg Bizman Abayis. We need to bring Maser Sheni to Yerushalayim and to eat it b'kedusha b'Yerushalayim. But I think Laman Tilmad Liyiros Hashem Elokecho Kol Hayomim is exactly the same as Tzitzis, Tefillin, and Sukkah. So bekorov biyomenu, when we will be zeicher to binyan beis hamikdash and bias Moshiach tzidkenu, and probably the Torah, first thing he will do is to update his sefer, and we'll have another few volumes of the Torah, and we'll have Torah on Seder Zroim and Kodshim and Taharis, and the Bach will follow suit. And the Bach will need to update the Bach. Then I think we will find this chiddush of the Bach in 4 sources and not only 3. Tzitzis, Tefillin, Sukkah, and Achilas Maser Sheni b'Yerushalayim, Leman Tilmad Liyiros Hashem Elokecho Kol Hayomim. So let's hope Bekorah B'Yameinu will be able to mekayim this mitzvah as well, Achilas Maser Sheni Yerushalayim, together with all the other mitzvahs in Yerushalayim, Yireh Kodesh B'Binyan Beis HaMikdash, and we will be mekayim together with Kol Beis Yisrael. V'yochaltu lefnei Hashem Elokecha b'mokom asher yivcha l'shaken shmei sham, Maser degoncha, tiroshcha v'yitzarecha b'choris b'kolcha v'tzoncha, leman tilmad liyiros Hashem Elokecha Kol Hayomim. We should be zeicher b'mheru v'yomeinu amen.
Okay, we are now going to ask the Rav. Can the Rav hear me?
I hear you perfectly. Do you all hear me?
Yes. Okay, so Yasher Koyach, we asked the Rav to do 3 things in a short time frame. We are going to go overtime, Rabbi Sai, with the Rav's permission, because I now have here submitted over 100 questions. We're obviously not going to be able to do all of them. I've been trying to scan them quickly to see which are most negay l'maisa. We'll divide it into 2 categories.
So Rabbi Garzman, I only have another hour and a half.
Right. Okay. So Ilam will stay on as long as they can. We're here to try to help our segel of Limdim and Mivakshi Hashem, and we thank you for everything as always. Okay. So we're going to divide this into 2 basic categories. One is Pesach, and one is quarantine-related questions, mostly benegeya to Hilchos Tefillah. Let's start with Pesach. So, Bir Chametz, given the fact that we are precluded from the normal procedure, what is, the Rav knows that we have a lot of questions here, so you'll do whatever length or shortness you wish to answer. Best procedure for performing Bir Chametz this year.
Okay, so this, as I mentioned before, this is going to be a different type of Seder. Everything is going to be different this year. Everything. From A to Z, or let's say from Aleph to Tov. Bir Chometz is going to be different. So in most Jewish communities, Bir Chometz, we go out and come together, everybody with this big bag of Chometz, and we have the big barrel or a pile or wherever it is, and we bring the lulav and the hadassah and the aravis, and some people bring 5 or 6 or 7 lulavim, and we eat beer chametz. That is not going to happen this year. So what I suggest is the vast majority of chametz throw into the garbage pail. Get it out of your house on time. Once it's in a public garbage pail, it's hefka gomer. You bear no longer responsibility, and doesn't matter whether it's carried away or not. What you leave to be makayim bia chometz is 10 ptitin, the 10 little pieces of chometz. And this year, those pieces should be crumbs, smaller than they usually are. And your makayim bia chometz, if all those pieces together are one kazayas, and a kazayas in this halacha is as big as an olive, doesn't need to be bigger. We don't need a chazon ish here. Put them in a tin can and burn them. I don't want chas v'sholem, any tragedies of fires. But you could just use a little sardine can or a pickle can or whatever it is, and have 10 tiny little crumbs, and that is the way you're going to do Bia Chometz this year. And it's as simple as that. And you say the L'Shem Yichud, and you say all your tefillas on that Bia Chometz. All you need to burn is a kazayas. So the 10 pieces of chometz you use for bedikas chometz, that should be the only chometz you're going to leave over for Bia Chometz. All the rest you're going to just throw away before Zman Isurah.
Okay, Mechiras Chametz. So, well, again, we're not going to go into the details. Rav just said that you take it out, you bring it outside. To Shusarabim, people live in apartment buildings. I assume the hallway is sufficient, even if you know they're not necessarily going to pick it up. You're being mafkrit and you're being mevatlit, and that was inherent in the Rav's Pesach. If you live in a single-family home outside the street and an apartment outside of your apartment, is that correct?
I'm not that familiar. So the garbage is carried, you put the garbage outside of your apartment in an apartment building?
Yes.
So I would prefer, most families don't really eat chametz on the day of bedikas chametz, or on the day of Bia Chometz. Most kitchens are already Pesach. I would suggest, if you have chametz gomer, discard of it maybe the day earlier and have it taken away. Even though by basic halachic definition, I think once it's outside your house in the hallway that belongs to all the shreinim, by basic halachic definition, I think you're okay. But I would prefer having it out of your house, out of your domain. So I think most people don't eat chametz gomer in the morning of Sreifas chametz. But by basic halachic definition, Rabbi Gadasman is right. As long as it's out of your private house, then you'd bear no longer responsibility. But I would prefer if it would be taken away.
Okay, Mechiras, thank you. Mechiras Chametz. So most people have already interacted with their rabbanim, but they do normally. So let me limit this question, and we're not going to question how the Rav conducts it. The Rav here, the rabbanim here in America. But what's somebody who is locked up in his house, totally has no access to Rav? There are internet Mechiras Chametz. What's the Rav psak in that?
Well, my Beis Din will have internet Mechiras Chametz. That is exactly what, Some individuals want to come personally to sell chametz by me. So outside my door, only if a person calls me personally. I do not do it on an official way because I don't want people standing outside my door. But there are some elderly people that, that don't know what the internet is. So if they call me, I will put outside my door a shtar. I'll have them sign that shtar. I'll open the door and see them from 3 meters away and wish them a good Yom Tov. But those are only very few people. We do internet. Our Beis Din has a site, and that is the way we do Mechiras Chametz. So usually, as you all know, when a person comes to the Rav, he's Makabel Kinyan. So online, you can't be Makabel Kinyan, but that Kabbalah's Kinyan is not Ma'akav at all. And Choshe Mishbet Kuf Pei Beisif Aleph, it is clear in Shulchan Aruch that mini shlichus doesn't require a kinyan. The minig is based on the Rambam Perek Hey, Hilchos Mechira Halacha Yud Aleph Yud Beis Yud Gimel. The Rambam says, then by mini shliach we do make a kinyan, but that is just to prove gemara das or smichas das. It's not a halachic requirement. And I think that the fact that you go into the site and you fill out the form and then you click your name, that is the equivalent of doing a kinyan. So it's kosher lechatchila to do the internet machila.
Okay, so once we're on the internet already, what is the Rav's Pesach? I'm seeing b'chayrim via the telephone or via Zoom, as we are now. Does that have any validity? What should the b'chayr do?
It has validity. So dealing basically with Tanas b'chayrim, this is a very interesting discussion beyond the scope of Rabbi Gaddason's question, or you're asking these questions. So the minig is not to fast. Tshuva me'ahava, the Talmud of the Noda B'Yehuda, is very much against the Siyam Masechet minig, and he says it's a tainus. It's a tainus like Tanas Esther, like other tanais. I mean, you need to fast. But minig Beis Yisrael, quoted in the Mishnah Brura as all major achronim is, we do not fast, we participate in the Siyam Masechet. Minag Yisrael Torah. So the question is, must you be present or not? And my psak is, if you're part of the Siyum on Zoom, on Skype, or even in the telephone, that is valid, especially in our time. There are tens of thousands of people that learn in these methods by the phone, by various different sites. So if you learn online and you actually are Messiah Mesechtes online using Skype, Zoom, telephones, or any other modern technology, if you learn that way, you actually are Messiah Mesechtes that way. It's valid for a Siyam as well. So let me say this. If you could actually do a Siyam, that's preferable. One of my Talmidim had a great idea, and he recorded himself the entire Mesechet Makas Yerushalmi. It's the shortest Mesechet in Shas. It's 7 blot. So online, I think the OU uses that. So one of my Talmidim in Etzisol went through the entire Mesechet Makas Yerushalmi, 90 minutes. So you could log in, I don't even know where it is, look it up. And in an hour and a half, you could learn together with him the entire Mesechet and have a Siyum Lechatchela. Isn't it greater to do a Siyum yourself than just listening to another one? But if you can be Messiah Mesechta, you definitely could listen by telephone, by Skype, by Zoom, by any other method. And it's good. And then at home, you eat a piece of cake and it's a Sudas Mitzvah.
Okay, Tfilas Kalim. So this year, obviously, there is a lot of people who have new Kalim they didn't have before, young couples, etc. Can't get to the mikveh. What do we do?
So Tfilas Kalim, I have a two-pronged approach. So this is a real problem because so many people, as I said, are making the Seder the first time in their life. And bearing that in mind, they must have kalim. You know, people, young couples that didn't dream about making a Seder. But now they're going to make a Seder, so they need kalim. And the mikveh and the kalim mikvahs are closed. I hope they're closed. I very much hope so, because everything should be closed. And a mikveh kalim is a very dangerous place. Having 100 people touch the same bags and the same kli and put their hands into the water is a grave danger. So I very much hope that kalim mikvahs are closed, just like I very much hope that men mikvahs are closed. So bearing in mind that kalim mikvahs are closed, so what do we do with tfilas kalim? According to most Rishonim, in Minchas Osher Chelik Gimel, there are about 5 or 6 or 7 shuvas in Dinei Tfilas Kalim. I think it's from Nun Vav going through Samach Beis. And in my opinion, most Rishonim maintain that Tfilas Kalim is a mitzvah d'oraisa and not a midrabanan, contrary to the Yeshuas Yaakov that says most poskim say it's d'rabanan. I think most poskim maintain it's d'oraisa. And I also proved from the Rambam that it's an issa d'oraisa to use kalim without tefillah. So we're dealing with a real problem. The solution is setting to a goy. And we find that solution twice in Shulchan Aruch. Orach Chaim Shinchov, Gimel Yoredei Kuf Chof, Siv Zayin Yoredei, Siv Tet Zayin in Orach Chaim. So the Shulchan Aruch deals with a question: you bought a kli and you didn't have time to be toivel before Shabbos. So Shulchan says you could be makna to a guy. The Taz says that is only lizman, only for Shabbos. But Rabbi Kiva Eigen Yodei Kufchof deals with big kalim. They're too big to immerse in the mikveh. And he brings from the Kadmonim. The Eitzah is makna to a guy. But the problem is, we didn't get out of the house. So how are you going to do to Kanua to Goy? And the second problem is, Torah Sakinyona between a Jew and a Goy is extremely complex. The most complex shtar we have is the shtar Mechiras Chometz, not the one that people sign. That's just shtar harashoah. That's a simple document. But the document between the Rav and the Goy is the most complicated shtar we have in our toolbox. So the average person doesn't know how to be makna ekli to a goy. So this year in my shtar mechiras chometz, there's a separate clause in which the person says, I have new kalim that I couldn't be toivel and I want to sell them to a goy. And the Rav selling the chometz to a goy will always also sell all those kalim to the same goy. So this year we have a bargain, a package deal for the same price. You not only sell your chometz, you also sell your new kalim. But it's important to specify what those kalim are, because regarding mechiras chometz, we also specify where the chometz is. We can't do that with kalim, because the kalim will be used throughout the Pesach, not stacked away in a cabinet. So at least you should specify what those kalim are. So this is only a partial solution, because we do mechiras chometz out of Pesach in the morning. But the people buying those kalim, it's not only cutlery, it's pots and pans, and they need to use those kalim before mechiras chometz. So mechiras chometz won't help them because they need to cook and bake in those kalim before this man of mechiras chometz, and therefore we also use hefker. Anybody that bought new kalim and he cannot be toivel should be mafker those kalim. And mafker bifnei shloisha. If you can't speak to your two neighbors, then you could do it by Zoom or by Skype and show them the kli and say, I'm mafker this kli and I'm putting it out of my door. If you want, you have 15 minutes to come and take those kalim for yourself. Nobody comes, take them back into the house, but you're not mechaven to be zoicha. The kli is hefka. When we use a kli shel hefka, it's bottom and tefillah. So both these aterim are shas atchak. And one would ask, if I'm after the kelim, how could I sell them? If it's hefker. So if you're mevatel your chometz, how could you sell your chometz? We use bittul and mechira to be on the safe side. We use hefker and mechira to be on the safe side. If the hefker isn't valid, then we do the mechira. So that is why I suggest being a mafkir your kalim, and then that is good enough to use the kalim, but also include your kalim in mechiras chometz. If your local Rav doesn't have a clause to sell the kalim, you could rely on hefker alone. So you need to be mafkir those kalim, and mafkir, and not be mechaven to be zoicher again till after Pesach the hefker. But you need to remember not to use those kalim after Pesach without tefillah. So if you have various different kalim at home, I would suggest making a siman. As Pesach goes by, you need to be toivel those kalim.
Going back to mechiras chometz, many people are not to sell chometz be'en. Is there any difference this year? What can be sold differently?
In the past few days, I have seen many kulas, and I think some rabbonim are exaggerating. I don't see any reason why we should be makel regarding kidneys or other things. I think there is an atmosphere of, this is a difficult time, so let's throw everything away and let's be makel. And some people are writing kulas in different areas. And yes, I am fully aware how hard and difficult these times are. but we still need to be reasonable. So, mechiras chametz. First of all, let me say this very clear. Mechiras chametz is a valid mechira, and you could sell chametz gomer. It's just a minig. It's a chumra b'alma. You could sell chametz gomer. It's valid. So the Gaon was against mechiras chametz, and some other poskim, and many have a minig not to sell chametz gomer. I don't see a reason to change that minig this year. It's hard for me to imagine that there won't be bread after Pesach. I don't know what's happening in New York. So if there is a real chashash, there will be a lack of basic commodities after Pesach. You definitely could sell chametz gomer. At least in Israel, that does not seem to be the case. So those people that have a minig not to sell chametz gomer, I don't really see a reason to change that minig this year, unless there is a real risk that there will be a lack of the most fundamental commodities after Pesach. Doesn't seem reasonable to me, but I'm not in New York right now. I think it's not the right atmosphere just to be makel and everything because we're in a Shas Torah. Shas Torah necessitates more Torah, more Yerushalayim, more diktika mitzvahs. So, I have no pachad to be makel. I told you before, I was makel to build. I was makel for boina. So anything that touches pikuach nefesh, I'm not a machmir in pikuach nefesh. But I do think we shouldn't exaggerate and just say, okay, so everything, all I'm in Hagam, we're going to put aside.
Okay, I think just to add a code to that, some of the Rabbanim here are worried for a side reason that people are going to need absolutely chametz right after Pesach, and there is a problem because in Chutz La'aretz we go from Yantiv Achim Pesach right into Shabbos. So normally you'll say, okay, we'll leave Pesach for another day or two, but we do need to get chalas, and there's going to be a huge run on in the stores, and then people will be mefer, and I know the Rav is very machmer on this, the rules of the shilton not to go out, not to congregate, and therefore some of them are being makel for that reason. And that's a Matthias question.
I have total confidence in the psukim of local Rabbonim, and I do not question their judgment. What I said is, I've been seeing in various different sites, Rabbonim, this is a heyday for some Rabbonim that, everybody is interested in Kikar Shabbat and in other different sites, and everybody posts his own kulas. And I am somewhat troubled by the atmosphere of, it's a Shas Torah, so everything is mutar. But I have total confidence in the local Rabbonim. If they really feel that people will leave their homes, then yeah. I made this very clear. Me'ikar adin, you could sell chametz gomer. You don't have a problem. It's a chumra ba'alma, and if Rabbanim feel there's a need, you could sell chametz gomer.
Okay. There is a possibility that we won't be able to have enough romaine lettuce for UMaror. Beyond the obvious of going back to the European minhag of eating crane, what is assuming we can't get that either? What's the procedure for UMaror if there's a shatzat chak? Can you use regular Boston lettuce?
I don't really know, and I am very careful not to give up psak. I don't know. Our Mercedes is that romaine lettuce is UMaror. I do not know whether other types of lettuce could pass as UMaror. I do think that every lettuce has a fundamental bitter taste. So if it's a real shasat chak, I think you could be yoyse with any lettuce based on the psak of the Ramah that every yerek mar goes as UMaror. But the Bais Yosef doesn't write that. So a Sephardi Jew, I think, has a problem relying on lettuce, which is not the Messiah of romaine lettuce. But if you really can't get romaine lettuce, and you can't get horseradish, and you can't get chrein, so according to them, I think you could be yoytze, but that is really a shasat chak. Preferable to get either Is chlane called horseradish in English? I'm not sure.
Yes.
Is it? Okay, so
Yeah.
I would prefer either romaine lettuce or horseradish.
Okay. There are general questions beneged to the Leila Seder for people who are positive but are not very symptomatic. Are there any kulas in the shiurim for them? Are there any different and then the hugim? This is a general question, so I'm not sure exactly what the question is.
So once again, I want to go back to my previous comment. Echoila is potter if even from a mitzvah d'oraisa, if performing a mitzvah d'oraisa would exacerbate his illness, would make him worse. Unlike a lotasa, which only pikuach nefesh pushes aside, overrides, bitul mitzvah to say is even if you're going to be neufel and mishkav, not only by mora, which is the rabban, and even matzah, which is the orais. And that's why people that have celiac or other conditions and they cannot eat gluten, they're basically potter for mitzvahs matzah. So kal v'chomer that we could be makel by shiurim, but that is only if they really have a problem eating matzah of mora. The fact that you have COVID-19 doesn't necessarily mean that you have a problem eating matzah. But if you do have a problem eating matzah, then you definitely could be makel b'shiurim. But I just come back to my previous comment because I've been asked this question 20 times in the past few days. So I have coronavirus. Do I need to eat matzah? The question is a very personal one. Do you have a problem eating matzah? The fact that you're ill doesn't bother you from any mitzvah unless that mitzvah will make your illness tougher, will make your condition worse. But if they do have a problem eating matzah or mortar or dalat koisis or whatever it is, we definitely could be makel b'shiurim. And let me make this clear. Me'ikar adin, some will be very angry at what I say now. Me'ikar adin, a kazayas is the size of an average olive. Because I want to be a machmir, I say the size of a big olive, not an average one. That is a kazayas. So, personally, B'leila Seder, I am machmir to the Shia of Chazanish, by Dalat Koises, by Morah, by Matza, because I'm healthy and I have no problem with it. But if you have a problem, any medical issue, a kazayas is a kazayas, as big as a kazayas, and no need bigger. And you could even make a brocha on a kazayas. It's not only without a brocha. So if a person has coronavirus and he can't eat matzah, he's potter for matzah, he's potter for moror. He definitely could be makel in the minimum shear, and he could say a brocha on a kazayas. I hope I made myself clear.
Yes. Okay. A question related to hygiene, given that washing hands is very important and warm water is preferable. Are there any washing hands, warm water? Is there any terim this year, legabe yantiv and or Shabbos with hot water?
Yes, definitely. So when you turn the faucet, do it with a shinui. And you definitely could use warm water. It's important. It's one of the most important things is hygiene of your hands. My hands are all chapped because I've been using too much soap and alcohol and alcohol. But it is one of the most important things. And you could use warm water to wash your hands with liquid soap. So turn on the beres, the faucet with a shinui.
You're talking about Yom Tov or Shabbos?
Shabbos and Yom Tov. Because the problem is not so much the bishul, the problem is activating an electrical system. And there would be no difference between Yom Tov and Shabbos.
And therefore, what about, we have 3 days of Yom Tov here, what about being makel this year for a hot shower on Yom Tov?
I think this question, once again, is not really related so much to coronavirus. Dealing with coronavirus, it's the virus is transferred from one person to another by touching various surfaces or by breathing in. My psak is when we have 3 days of Yom Tov and you're in Istanis, you could shower regardless of coronavirus. I think it's a davar hashava l'chol nefesh if a person really is in Istanis and he needs it. But I don't think this question is in any way related to COVID-19.
Okay, let's move now to conclude with several shilas on davening and brachos. The conclusion after we finish this, we have here about getting together, going to Siddharim, and all sorts of questions. But I'd like to see my parents, my grandparents, etc. I'll let the Rav address that at the end of the segment. Let me get a couple of questions in here. B'negea to tefillos. First of all, Kiddush Levana. A lot of people can't leave their homes. Berchas Ilonos. Can you do that from your house if you can see a tree? What is the recommendation for those two?
Of course, you could do it from your house if you see a fruit tree that's malavlev. Why not? Our minig is to take our kids. So in my backyard, I have 2 lemon trees. One is my neighbor's and one is my own. So today we said Berchas Ilonos, and it's beautiful. But you could do it from your window. You could say Kiddush Levana from your window if you'd see the moon. So, I don't really think there's a problem of leaving your house by night when nobody is sticking around. I think, at least in Israel, there is no restriction of leaving your house. I think it's important to have some fresh air or do some walking. So, first of all, we need to adhere to whatever authorities demand. But at least authorities in Israel, there is no issue of walking out of your house. So you could go out in the street by night when nobody is around and say Kiddush Levana, or go on your roof, or go on your porch, or if you could do it from your window, you could do so as well. But people should not get together for Kiddush Levana, just like you shouldn't get together for any other mitzvah. If we don't daven with a minyan, and that's far more important than Kiddush Levana with a minyan, then goes without saying you shouldn't get together. But you could say Kiddush Levana.
B'negea to, of course, you can't do it unless you see the Levana. You can't just do it.
Right.
Okay. Legabi davening every single day. Just a few questions. Somebody commented on the Rav's Meya Brachos. Is it possible to daven Shemoneh Esrei out loud and other people can answer Amen? Is there any into that?
Once again?
Is there any possibility of davening Shemoneh Esrei out loud and other people will hear your brachos and answer Amen?
Without Chazor Sashatz, you mean?
Without Chazor Sashatz, just the Amida.
No.
Can you say it out loud?
Of course not.
Of course
it needs
not.
Okay. It needs to be said balachash.
Balachash
So people will find different ways to have their Meya Brachos. You don't daven a Yechidus Shemoneh Esrei out loud. No.
Okay. I'm not even going to go into all these questions about making binyanim and various places and porches, because now everybody has finally, at least in America, gotten the message that in all places, in New York and New Jersey, at least, and in the other big cities, that binyanim are not preferred under any circumstances. But just Lil Maid, what's the Rav's psak in making these binyanim on porches that can see each other? What do you feel about that?
I think if people stand on their porches and they see each other, they are mitzdaref leminyan and lekol dover. Regarding Chazor Sashatz, if they could see each other, they are mitzdaref. Without going into great detail, that's Simenun Heisif Yudad based on Shuvas Arashva. I know many Rabbanim came out against it, but my opinion is they are mitzdaref to a minyan.
Okay, Kriyas Torah. Is there an Indian to?
I lost you.
Kriyas Torah. Yeah. Is there an Indian to read from the Chumash? What's the procedure for that? How should you do it?
If you're davening b'yechidus,
which we are.
You should not take out a Sefer Torah, even if you have a Sefer Torah at home. But my feeling is you should read the Parsha from a Chumash. And what I said right now is not based on any halachic source. It's based on my feeling. Kedei shelo yelchu gimel yomim b'li Torah, and this is a takonas Chazal. We do not take a Sefer Torah out of an Oran Kodesh only to be Makayim the mitzvah of Kriyas Torah, but I think it would be right to read the respective Parsha from a Chumash, to be as close. You know, there's a Divrei Chaim regarding a person who doesn't have a Kazayas Moror. Is there a point in eating a mashu? And the Divrei Chaim says, by mitzvahs, there is no din of chotzashir at all. But he should eat a mashu as zeichar on a mitzvah. And that is a Divrei Chaim, Chuvas Divrei Chaim, Orach Chaim Chelek Aleph Simcha Chaf. I feel the same way regarding Kriyas HaTorah. Sheni Chamishi B'Shabbos. I mean, this is part of the Seder HaTfilah, so I think we should read it from a Chumash. And a person that can read it with Tamim, preferable read it with Tamim. Goes without saying, without brachas.
Okay, those saying, one last question here, those saying Kaddish is there for or Yartzeit, given the fact that he can't go to a minyan, but maybe there were some Yano in Eretz Yisrael. Is there any particular procedures they should do, or is it just part of the Gzeira?
In some old Sidurim, there are some tefillahs that we say when we can't say Kaddish. And Reb Shlomo, I could forward to you by email those neschois. But it's preferable if you know people that do daven with a legitimate minyan, and I stress a legitimate minyan, because in Eretz Yisrael, neither the Gedolim nor the authorities came out against porch minyanim. I do think that every Yid has to adhere what the Gedolim in his country, in his city, in his Kehillah say. But there are places in which there are minyanim, and you could ask a person that is saying Kaddish to say Kaddish for your family as well. Ner le'echad, ner le'meya. And a person that's saying Kaddish for his parent could also add on additional names to that Kaddish.
Okay. So now we get to the last very sensitive and tricky question of Yontif. This year, the Rav mentioned it, spoke to it very clearly how this year they're going to have different Yom Tovim. I have here about 15 to 20 questions here, all slaving around the same question. I've been quarantined. I feel okay. Can I go to see my parents? They've been quarantined. Every permutation possible. My mother is in her 80s, has not left her apartment for 2 years. Can I leave the camera on Shabbos and Yontif? We are healthy young adults that live on our own. Can we have a Seder with alone? I will stress here, since the Rav is speaking from a different country, that here the government is being very, very strict and made specific proclamations, as in Eretz Yisrael, that this year Pesach has to be celebrated alone, no matter what it is. So can you speak to that? And I assume that's both halachic and shkafic. And we'll close with this.
Reb Shlomo, you justly said that this is a tricky question. I think it's far more than tricky. And I need tremendous siyata d'shmaya to say something clear which should not be misinterpreted. I think most people know me as a person that knows how to clarify his opinions, whether it's in Lamdis or Halacha and any other things. But I am afraid, I should find the right words. But I will try, because I never shy away from questions. On one hand, contrary to some other Rabbonim, and I say this sadly, from day one of this Magefa, I've been saying things that took others a week or so to come to the same conclusions. We need to strictly adhere to the rules. Purim, I was maybe the first in Eretz Yisrael to be mevatel and mesibis Purim. Every Purim night, 150 people or maybe more come to my house and they dance and sing till the early hours. And before the government demanded or required it, I said, no, I'm not going to have a mesibis Purim. It's too dangerous. In my house, people that came Purim with mishloach monis, I had a man standing at the door with alcohol gel, and nobody came into the house without disinfecting his hands. When people sat down to the table, there were personal plates, no public plate. I did not want 20 people putting their hands in the same dish, taking out nuts or popcorn. Every person got his own personal little plate and portion, and what he left over went to the garbage. And Baruch Hashem, to the best of my awareness, nobody was infected with a virus by being in my home. And as this Sega developed, I usually was the first to say how important it is to adhere to all the rules. But I do think, like in any other endeavor, you must use common sense. And if you have an old parent who's 90 years old, leaving him alone might also be pikuach nefesh, might also be a tremendous risk. So an elderly person is living alone or with a caretaker. And the children usually come every day to visit, to help her around, and just leaving them alone for an unlimited period might also be pikuach nefesh. Sometimes you have an elderly parent, and if you're not there to ask, are you okay? Is something hurting? Do you need something? That could also be pikuach nefesh. So a government, like any other body of authority, must put set rules. That's the nature of authority, and those are the nature of rules. But you need to apply common sense. So if you have a 90-year-old parent living alone, and she never was alone by the Seder, depression could kill a person. Last week, a person jumped off a third-story balcony in a hospital from coronavirus, and he's in critical condition. So if you have an elderly parent that didn't leave his house for the past 6 months, and he's feeling well, and you're really afraid to leave them alone for an extended period, I think you could bring them into your house and having them stay with you. What is wrong is having people come in and out. My mother is 92 years old. She never in her life made a Seder alone, and she has an Indian Goya living with her. So our plan is, we have one of our young couples in Einikel who hasn't been leaving the house for the past month, and my mother will be with them for Leil HaSeder. So I do not in any way want to diminish or minimize the chiyuv to adhere to rules. But like in any other endeavor, you must apply common sense. And not always could you leave a 90-year-old parent, especially if they're alone or they're limited, and just leave them alone. That is a sakana as well. So discuss it with your local Rav. Don't in any way minimize the importance of following the rules. But sometimes the details are also important, not only the general and guidelines. So I hope nobody would understand from my comments that hutra haritzua. And you just do whatever you want and whatever you need to do. No, I want you all to understand this virus is so contagious. It's horrific. The Sara Briut in Israel, Yankov Litzman, and his wife both have coronavirus. You would expect a health minister to follow rules, which I'm sure he did. So some experts say that 2 meters is not enough. That sometimes this virus could catch you from 3 and 4 or 5 meters. So Asher yosh beveisecho, al teitzu ish mepesach beisoi. But in extreme cases, you must apply common sense. And sometimes elderly people, you just can't leave them on their own. And you need to find a solution. But the solution needs to be a sensible solution, because exposing them to the virus could almost be definitively bringing about their demise. So you need to be extremely careful and cautious. I hope I made myself clear.
The Rav did. Can I just one last question again to that, and we'll close with this. Is it halachically permissible to keep a open, conference line? There are many names for this, to be able to observe an elderly parent over the course of Shabbos and Yom Tov if you can't or don't want to be together?
This is also a question which you need to consult your local Rav. I totally disagree with the Pesach that you could have a Seder with Zoom and interact with other people. First of all, I think it's not a halachically correct Pesach. So some people think that the Isser is just turning on the system. No from person, no from shul would have a microphone. Using Zoom is no different than talking on the phone or talking into a microphone. And I also think it's a mistake to be matir using technology. Once the genie is out of the bottle, there is no way to get him back in. So regarding electricity, electronics, technology, we need to be so careful. If we give ahead to this year, no way we could change it next year, because there always will be elderly parents in old age homes and in different places, and there will always be good reasons to interact with them, Yom Tov or Shabbos. So I'm not criticizing anyone. Some very chashuv rabbanim, to which I have tremendous respect, gave a heter, but I must disagree. It's different if you have an elderly parent and you're afraid that something might happen. That is pikuach nefesh. So it depends on the details. Consult your Pesach, your Rav. Sometimes, especially with 3 days, Shabbos and Yom Tov, I definitely think it might be a pikuach nefesh situation. So you might need to observe your parent. And sometimes you might even need to interact with your parent and ask, are you okay? Are you doing fine? Do you need something? But the heter must be based on pikuach nefesh and not just on having a seder, having a nice seder.
Okay, let's close with a little bit of a happier note. What's the procedure for tefillas tal this Pesach, which will unfortunately be done by yechidus? Should there be a chraz in your house? Should you bang? Is it any different this year since we're doing it without a minyan? And we'll close with this.
So a few very brief comments regarding tefillah. There's no need to make a chraz in your house. If you have a big family, do. But the concept of a chraza is a communal meaning. It's the meaning in the kehilas. If you're alone at home, you don't need a chraza. But you definitely should say tefillas tal. You don't have chazos hashatz, so it's not part of the chazos hashatz. But say tefillas tal before tefillas musaf, and then betefillas musaf you're maskeh tal. Halal b'leila seder. So if you're davening marav at home, and those that do say a brocha and halal marav in shuls, and I've been asked by many people, do we say halal b'yachidus? Yes, we do. Do we say a bracha on the halal? We'll say at home. Yes, we do. That's not a simple psak. According to the Gaon, we shouldn't, because the Gaon argues that halal bebeis haknesses b'leila seder is persum inisa, and the Gaon compares it to adlokas ner Chanukah bebeis haknesses. But in this new minchas osher, the new one that I said a shechiyanu on tonight, there's a lengthy discussion about halal b'leila seder, and in my opinion, you say a bracha on halal in your davening, even at home. I just want to say generally, new sefer comes out, you want to sell the sefer, but I have no one to sell the sefer to, so we've been sending out a digital version of the new sefer to anybody that wants to get one. So at least people should learn my Torah. So regarding tal, no chazos shatz, and you definitely shouldn't say tal in your Shemoneh Esrei, but say tal before Musaf. There's no need to do a hachroza. Regarding halal b'leila seder, I think those that have the meaning to say halal in shul with a bracha should do the same at home. Any other tefillah related shilas?
There are, but I think we have been. We took the Rav's time and Elam's time as much as we can at the moment. I've been to get to general shilas. People may submit them to me by email or otherwise, and we'll forward them.
I will try to do my best to respond. And let me once again tell all of you, it's such a schus. I'm home. I'm busier than I ever was, but teaching Torah is what gives me chizuk. So I thank Rabbi Gaddisman, and I thank you all, and I think this is an unbelievable schus, especially in these times. As I said, we need our Batzas Torah, we need Simchas HaTorah. So thank you, and I wish you all and your families, you should have a beautiful Yom Tov, a wonderful Seder, and you should all be fine and healthy, and we should only hear beside us Tovis, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu should help. Ki ameitzeichem me'eretz Mitzrayim, arenu neflois, we should see Nisam neflois, and we should be zeicha to binyan beis hamikdash. And as I finished my halachic share today, we should be zeicha once again to be makayim the mitzvah Chag and eat the korban Pesach besimcha uvesason biyushalayim ira kodesh b'mheiro v'yomeinu amen. Thank you and a good Yom Tov.
Yeah, shakayach to the Rav. Before we close this, I just want to mention there are hundreds of people now on the line. If among them there are doctors and healthcare workers, we are going to try to see. We have received obviously numerous questions from doctors, many of them the most chomerdik nefesh, which cannot be answered in public forums. So there may be a possibility that we'll try to organize a session meyuchat for doctors and healthcare workers. And if we can, we'll let everybody know via our usual method. We'll be sure at 4:00 today in the Union of Vaseva. Thank you, Rav Weiss, and a Chag Kasher V'Sameach. Thank you very much.
All the best. Call to.
Well, for those of you still on, I'll also tell you, we'll look for Sunday's drushes by or David Cohen and Rabbi Feldman. We're trying to organize the messaging on that as we speak. Yeshakayach, thank you very much, and thank everybody for participating.